So guys, something a little bit different today. It's not gardening related, it's travel related. I'm going to the UK next week. Not this Saturday coming, the Saturday after. Due to the fact my mother's not very well. Now we've been trying to get there for 3 years now due to this pandemic. And last year, of the first year of the pandemic, obviously everything was up in air and nobody knew anything, right? We arranged to go last year as a family. We got everything sorted out, new passports for everybody who needed one, and me included. And they changed the rules to say that wherever we came from, we had to stay in for 10 days, right? Which, as a family of 5 going to see my mother, we couldn't stay in an hotel for 10 days and pay for that, and then spend time with my mother, and then come back. So that made that impossible. We had to cancel all that, all right? But now I have to go. She's not very well. Now, she's fully injected. I'm not injected. None of my family are injected. We've all had COVID. All right? Even though I've had COVID, I have to have a test. If I had the injections, I wouldn't have to be tested. But it's proven now by multiple times that people who are fully injected can still get and pass COVID.
Vaccinated. But cases in vaccinated people do happen. The CDC estimates about 35,000 per week among 162 million people in the U.S. who are vaccinated. Now, the agency released a case study today on the major outbreak we've been hearing about in Provincetown, Massachusetts, that began around July 4th, where among 469 cases in Massachusetts, 74% were fully vaccinated. We spoke with a young man who came down with COVID after visiting.
I work out 5 or 6 days a week, and I was truly off my feet for 6 of the past 11 days, which was shocking to me and surprising.
So, as me who's had COVID, which my immune system might be better than this injected person who can still get COVID and pass it on, but I still have to have a test the day, two days before I go and 2 days after I arrive. Now, I've looked at the site today. I'll show you a clip about now. So if you stop this here, you can read that and you can see Ukrainians have to have no tests whatsoever after arrival. If you want to look at the site, I will put a link at the bottom in the description. Now, looking at that site there, people from the Ukraine can fly into England without having a test, which is totally understandable, right? If these people are fleeing war, they're not going to go and stop at a test centre and have somebody stick a swab up the nose or their arse, are they? You know what I mean? So, totally understand that. But the double standard here is that when they arrive in UK, they still don't have to have a test. Now, what sense does that make? Now, if I were to have a test 2 days before I go and it comes positive, then I don't know if I can still travel, or I'd have to isolate there for 10 days when I get there. Yeah? But no test when they actually get there. I still have to have a test when I get there, so within 2 days. So potentially these people could be travelling full of this deadly virus, because it's absolutely deadly, isn't it? There's nothing like with and of, because I mean, even Fauci had said last week that, well, the children that are coming into the hospital, even if they come in with a broken leg and they've got COVID, then they're put down as a COVID victim.
Hospitalized, many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID. And what we mean by that, if a child goes in the hospital, they automatically get tested for COVID, and they get counted as a COVID hospitalized individual, when in fact they may go in for a broken leg or appendicitis or something like that. So it's overcounting the number of children who are, quote, hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID.
But they've got a broken leg. They're in hospital for a broken leg, not for COVID. It's not that deadly to them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying people haven't died of it. But it's such a farce. These people can fly in from Ukraine or anywhere else. Maybe the guys who are coming over in dinghies here from France in UK, are they testing them when they get into UK? I don't know. But if you're coming from Ukraine, you don't have to be tested when you get there. So you can potentially have this deadly virus. You can pass that on to anybody you come in contact with when you're in the UK. Same as I could, if I was to test positive, but I wouldn't be able to because I would have to quarantine. If I had the second test, I would have to quarantine for 10 days. That's just that's making my piss boil, to be honest. That's why I'm making this video. And again, it's been proven that people who are fully vaccinated can get and pass COVID virus. So therefore, why aren't they being tested? Because they're no different from me. In fact, I might have got a better immune resistance now because I've been exposed to actual COVID without having the old... Yeah? Now, what you've also got to bear in mind is, if I've had a test, everybody who's unvaccinated on that plane has had a test to say they haven't got COVID, yeah, when they travel. And when they get back, or into the UK, say, they have to have a test 2 days later, and say that comes up positive, who would they be most likely to have caught COVID from? Would that be someone who's already tested negative before the flight, or would that be someone who hasn't had a test because they're injected, maybe, because you can still pass it and catch it? So how does that work? Because as an unvaccinated person, I could catch it off a vaccinated person. I don't care whether you're vaccinated. I'm not worried about catching it. It's not a problem for me, that. But that's the point I'm trying to make. If you're vaccinated, you don't have to have any tests. And if you're unvaccinated, you have to have tests. If you catch it, you must have caught it from a person that hasn't had a test, which that's the vaccinated person that might be sat next to you. It's absolute madness. Now, I'm going to say something now that might be a little bit controversial. It's all... these are all coincidences, let's say. These are coincidences. My mother started going downhill a little bit. She got blood clots after a second jab. And she's okay, she's alive. But after the second... But that's a coincidence, yeah? My wife's brother, his business partner, his wife was rushed to hospital. She's only, again, in a... I think she's late 30s, early 40s. Within 2 weeks of the jab, blood clots, rushed to hospital. Fortunately, she lived. Now, another woman who is the daughter-in-law of a colleague of my wife, 36-year-old, unfortunately, she died of a heart attack within 2 weeks of having the jab. All coincidental, obviously. Can't be anything to do with the jab. That's impossible. It's safe. We know that because Pfizer have releasing their data now, aren't they? But there's nothing on the news about that, is there? That's quite strange. And they did try to hide it for 75 years. Why would you try to hide the data for 75 years? For something that's totally, up and above board, and they made all the governments sign an agreement where they've got absolutely no liability if there were any problems with it. And governments aren't going to go, oh, well, there might be a problem here because somebody's got to pay, haven't they, eventually. People have been forced, coerced, let's say, coercion, forced to get the job, the jab, to keep the jobs. Although they've had to pull back on that because they've been legally challenged. But people did lose their jobs and have lost their jobs due to this, and that's coercion. Yeah, that's coercion, just like Harvey Weinstein, isn't it, with the young actresses. If you let me put this in you, I'll put you in this film. Coercion. That is what they've done. If you don't let this go into you, you've lost your job. You've just been raped in a different way, aren't you? I'm pro-choice in that respect. I think if you want to have it, you have it. If you don't want to have it, you don't have it. I'm not saying it's anything poisonous. I'm sure it helps a lot of people, but some people, say, have bad reactions to a bee sting or eating a peanut, And if it's not been long and far tested, then you don't know what sort of reactions, because we're all different, aren't we? But it's just these standards, these double standards of travel, which has just really knocked my duck off. And as I said, I've had a bit of a rant. My piss is boiling. I'm going to leave it at that. If I do get banned and my channel gets shut down, then shut down. You'll have to excuse my French, but YouTube can fuck right off, and that'll be that. But anyway, leave a comment if I'm still here, and it's nice to be nice.